I'm Dave Kaiser from Northwest Community Television, joined by Heidi Nelson, the Maple Grove City Administrator, and we're here to bring you the Maple Grove City Report. Look back at the most recent council meeting, which, Heidi, was a long meeting for Maple Grove, longest probably in a long time, just over 2 hours, so we'll give you an update there. And Heidi, of course, has plenty of notes about other things happening around the city. So let's start there. Let's begin by talking a little bit about groceries in the city of Maple Grove for people out on the western side of town. There is some good news in the works. Give us a Hy-Vee update.
Sure. So we've received an application for the development at it's going to be called the Markets at Rush Creek. It's kind of at the corner, the southeast corner of 101 and Bass Lake Road, County Road 10, right there. And I think this is a project that had a proposal on it a while back and sort of struggled with some of the economic downturn and whatnot, but now is coming back. And Hy-Vee will be the anchor tenant there. So they're moving forward with their grocery store project there, and then it also have gas station associated with it. Really a full service operation, about 96,000 square feet operation there. So a lot of things within the building for the community. And you're right, on that western side of town, there's just not a whole lot over there to serve what's really a growing residential population. So I think the residents on the west side of town and then as you go west into Corcoran or whatnot will really benefit from this project coming forward.
So what is the timing then? I guess the next part of the process is Planning Commission?
That's right. So they'll be in front of Planning Commission either late February, early March. Engineering has some work to do yet on some of the technical issues of the project, but we're hoping to get that one through Planning Commission in March and be in front of the City Council. And then they'd probably start some work this summer. But yeah, really exciting project coming to the west side of town.
All right, we'll keep you up to date on that. And we've been keeping you up to date on the S2S bus service. Let's give folks a little recap. And there was an article recently in the Star Tribune that might have opened a few eyes. So let's talk a little bit about what's the latest and what was the article about.
Yeah, so the bus service is continuing to operate, and I know they're starting to do a little bit more marketing out there to try to create more awareness about the service in the community with the area employers and then some of the local newspapers and whatnot, really trying to get into that local community. You know, the coverage in the paper was kind of about, you know, Jesus, this is a good use of public dollars. Why are we doing this? The ridership isn't there, you know, and all valid points, I think, and all things that the Transit Authority was aware of going into this, that ridership takes a while to build. People have to change their patterns and kind of get used to thinking about, well, could I take advantage of this service here and utilize the bus service? So I think they anticipated a kind of a slower, you know, uptake in ridership, but hopefully over time here, ridership will increase and people will see the value of the service. It is a demonstration project, and so it's something that's a test and trying to see if there's a market for it. I do know that the STA group that's involved, the four suburban transit authorities are involved, are getting back together in the week ahead just to kind of look at those marketing efforts and also look at, you know, how they're connecting with the businesses up and down the corridor and the timing of the buses, whatnot, to see if there's things that they can tweak to make it more appealing to riders.
And I take it there's no model here in the Twin Cities area of this ever happening before. How about in other metropolitan areas? Have they looked? Is there information from others that have made this work where, again, it's suburb to suburb type transit?
Yeah, you know, I'm sure there's other models around the country that they look to say, you know, how are we doing this?
And did it happen the same way? Did it take a little while to get going?
I do know up in the North Metro, before North Star started operation, they did some sort of demonstration project bus services up there to build ridership in advance of the rail line opening. And again, ridership was slow to create up there, but you know, that was part of they knew the long-term investment was the commuter rail. So I'm familiar with some of those demonstration type projects, and again, same experience in building that ridership. So they'll see what they can do to kind of get that going a little bit better, but clearly, you know, they're interested in making sure that we're making the right investment there as well. well, and so they'll be monitoring that as it goes forward.
All right.
Yep.
Let's talk about some other development things happening in the city. One would be a preschool academy coming to the new Central Park area.
Yeah.
Very unique use tied in with the park. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as a part of the Sky apartment project there that's just kind of on the east side of the park, there were 2 outlots that were available, one on the south end and one on the north end of the project. The daycare is looking at the outlet on the south end of the project, and they would bring kind of a full service preschool daycare program there. Kind of a nice use for that site. I think the city, sort of had sites on maybe some corner retail there or whatnot, but the preschool has taken up interest in that site, and so hopefully we'll see that project come forward here. I think staff's working through some of the technical issues with the project, circulation, parking, those kinds of things, but we'll see probably that project move forward. And in terms of location, across the street from an amazing park project, and right next to a lot of housing, that people might really be interested in those services there. So I think it would be a good project.
Walk out your door and walk over to the preschool and drop the kids off, right?
Right, exactly.
Let's talk about the Grove area. Again, some good development news there. It's something that has been in the works for a while and maybe a little bit slower than the city first thought it would be. What is happening right now in that area? Yeah,
well, we're seeing that some of the land has been transacting up there, and there's been an increased interest in some development up there, particularly from some additional medical office and some more retail that would kind of finish the area out. So we're likely to see some of those projects come forward this summer. So I think it's good to see sort of that renewed interest up there. And clearly, as the 610 project moves forward and starts to see, people can see that it's coming and it's going to get done this year, I think that probably triggers some of that renewed interest as well.
Speaking of 610, I know you are rejoining a group that's going to have as one of their top agenda items the 610. Tell us a little bit about the mayors of the North area that get together and talk about this.
Yeah, so North Metro Mayors is a group that Maple Grove has been long involved in. There's been several organizations over time that have served to represent the 610 project. There was the Crossing Coalition, and that group has sort of gone away now, and that it's across. We've made the connection, or we're going to as of this fall, and so the purpose of that group was to kind of forward that project and get it done. In terms of North Metro Mayors, Maple Grove's continuing its membership, and our interest this year is really in helping to kind of get the last pieces of 610 completed. There's other key transportation improvements in the North Metro that need to get done that all support, the broader transportation system and connections. Our focus is really on the 610 area, and so we'll be working with them and our legislative representatives on that effort this year.
So has that group changed at all? Now are you seeing Corcoran and even further west mayors get involved in this group? Because that seems to be the shift. I would guess maybe a Coon Rapids or Fridley, maybe not as involved anymore. Is that happening?
I think I don't think it's going further west, to my knowledge. I think it's really still kind of that Blaine to Maple Grove area.
Sure.
Blaine certainly has interests in Highway 65. Champlin has 169 interests, as well as Brooklyn Park. So there's plenty to be done, kind of within that area there. Certainly Corcoran has some interests going west, and the 610 project getting completed, as well as the balance of those connections getting done, certainly brings a lot of benefit and access to Corcoran, and they'll have some local road issues to deal with there. But I think really the focus is really still kind of in that central North Metro area.
All right, a few other things before we get to the council agenda. Let's talk about summer storms. You're looking ahead, not that you're predicting storms, but you want to be ready in case they come. What is the work that is going to be happening soon? Yeah,
so every so often the city staff likes to sit down and do sort of an emergency management tabletop exercise, and that's where we sort of play out a scenario. We meet in the EOC, sort of test our systems, and sort of play out that exercise just from a tabletop perspective. Involves police, fire, public works, administration, so we're dealing with communications. So on Monday, April 18th, the staff will be meeting from 4 to 6 in the afternoon to do that exercise. And then we pull in the council for the last hour from 6 to 7. Really talk about the council's role in that emergency management response. They certainly do have a role there. And so we want to make sure that everybody kind of understands that what their role is specifically before the storms hit. We've seen some of this over the last few years where we've had storms come through
Right.
that have caused disruption over a number of days, and the need for some cleanup and response by the city. So the more prepared we are, the better we can respond to those emergency situations.
And as an element of that that's changing is the way you get information out through social media, other sources. I would guess that's something, look back 10 years, 5 years even, to a storm that would happen. How does the city let people know what to do?
Right.
Now the avenues are there. Is that something that you each year kind of have to look at, okay, what's new, where
Yeah.
are people looking?
Yeah, and sometimes, other agencies or even residents can get ahead of the city in
Right.
terms of reporting the news.
Exactly.
And so
Yep.
we want to make sure that we're out there too, letting people know what the city's response is and what to be aware of. So clearly communications are a big part of that, and the changing nature of communications,
Right.
How people are receiving that. So absolutely something that needs to be on our radar.
All right. A couple other meetings that are coming up that Heidi and others from the city will be involved in. One is a planning session that you've got coming up, and also municipal legislators. Give us a preview of both of those.
Sure. So this Friday morning, the Municipal Legislative Commission will hold its legislative breakfast. It'll be in Plymouth, and it is primarily made up of some of the larger suburbs here on the west metro side. And it's an opportunity to meet with our local legislators and talk about those issues that are in front of them this year that are of concern to these larger suburbs. The Municipal Legislative Commission has a legislative policy that it works on, or a legislative platform that it works on every year that gets reviewed by all of the member cities and brought forward. So we'll be there talking about, transportation funding and those kinds of issues
Right.
this year, and then just representing, the larger suburb stake and what happens at the Capitol. So most of the council will be in attendance there, as well as our local elected officials, the representatives, and so just a good opportunity to touch base and let them know what we're thinking about.
And Wayzata, your previous spot was involved in the same group, I take it?
They weren't. There was
Okay.
a smaller city, and so this is really made up of the larger suburbs, and particularly the suburbs that tend to be, they don't receive a lot of local government aid,
Sure.
and they tend to be net contributors to the fiscal disparities program.
Right.
So the
Oh,
program
okay.
that sort of spreads that property tax wealth around the metro. I think those suburbs have kind of a different particular interest in what happens at the
Right.
legislature with moving those levers, and so that's kind of the charge of this group, is to represent those communities.
Okay. And then the council staff planning session, tell us about that big Saturday coming up.
Yeah, so this Saturday, February 20th, and if you're watching this after that date, it will have occurred, but February 20th, we're going to gather for the day in the EOC at the Government Center. This is an opportunity for the council and the department directors to kind of get an update from the departments about where we're at, what's the current status of operations, and what do we see coming down the pike in the next year and the next 5 years in terms of challenges and opportunities and needs that the departments will have. And so we'll spend the morning kind of in the update mode, having departments provide those updates. And then in the afternoon, we're really going to focus on kind of what those identified challenges and opportunities were, and based on that, what are the top priorities for the next 1 to 2 years? What do we really want to be focusing on there? So just, kind of a timeout. Let's get together, sit down.
Right.
I think a lot of communities do this a little bit more around the budget cycle, and that tends to work fine too. I think the council, particularly given the change in leadership, just wanted to sit down and kind of refocus and say, all right, how are we doing? And do we need to make any shifts or things that we need to, start doing or stop doing, that kind of a thing. So really looking forward to this. The weather, you plan it in February. Do you think it's going to be
Right.
10 degrees and snowing, and the forecast for Saturday is 42 and sunny, I think. So kind of trap people in a room on a beautiful day, but I don't think the golf courses are going to be open yet.
No,
so
maybe lunch out
hopefully-
on the patio or
maybe
something
we'll have
like
to
that
take
might
a
work.
quick walk at noon, but
That sounds
yeah,
good.
so looking forward to that session.
So as a bonus maybe of our next time we get together, we
Yeah.
can give you a little feedback about that event itself,
Absolutely.
maybe some
Yep.
of the things to be looking forward to. All right, let's dive into it. The meeting that was just held was 2 hours and 19 minutes long. One item was the biggest item of that meeting, but let's talk about some of the things earlier. And we've talked in the past shows about retirements at the city, and there's kind of a wave going on here, and there was another one at the council. Give us a little information about that.
Yeah, so Officer Bill Lindquist has been with the city for a number of years and is retiring. And, this is just something every city is dealing with, is that we have a lot of the kind of the baby boomers coming through the organization that are retirement eligible. And so part part of our big mission, something we're going to be talking about a lot, probably on the 20th of our planning session, is succession planning and how do we deal with those changes in the organization. We put together some statistics, and about 26% of our workforce over the next 5 to 7 years, 5 to 10 years, will be, likely certainly retirement eligible, but probably making those transitions.
Right.
And so that's just a lot of change for an organization, a lot of institutional knowledge walking out the door. The more we can be prepared for that and kind of strengthen the bench for behind some of these folks that'll be departing,
right.
The better off we can be. So, and I think the police department is certainly one of those organizations that'll see a lot of this change. The other, Terry Just is retiring, our Parks and Rec director. His going away event is the afternoon of March 9th. Public's encouraged and invited to attend that at the community center. But that's another example of, Terry's been with the city for a long time, 32 years, and that's just a lot of institutional knowledge that, you do your best to try to document and hand that down and along to the staff, but it certainly is a challenge, and it's something we need to be prepared for.
All right, big part of that is obviously getting those faces familiar out in the community.
Yep.
You're going through that right now, obviously,
Absolutely.
after Al had been in the community for so many years and really one of the faces of the city.
Yep.
Now you have someone new that you have to get used to, and all departments have to do that.
Yep. Yep.
Meet those groups, meet those organizations that are involved. All right, we'll keep you up to date on some of the changes there of the staff. Costco was on the council agenda.
Yeah.
Why were they there?
Well, they're looking to expand their liquor operation a bit. So they have, they call it the liquor pod. It's kind of that area on the front, kind of the west side of the building there when you walk in immediately to your left. They're expanding the square footage there, about 6,000 square feet they're adding on. So it'll come to the west out there, kind of into the parking area. I think it's just a, kind of a reflection of the marketplace with Total Wine coming into the market and whatnot, remaining competitive and probably just needing a little bit more square footage to do the business that they want to do there. So plans were reviewed, and it looks like that one's going to move forward over the summer.
So start of construction sometime during the summer?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so beware of that when you head to that parking lot.
Yes.
And Corcoran water contract, give us an update on that. The city of Maple Grove is very helpful in their water that they have in town. How does that work with Corcoran?
Yeah, so we supply water to with Dayton and Corcoran, and some to Osseo, I believe, as well. And so we have the ability to, with our infrastructure, do those kinds of shared service agreements, which is a good thing. Instead of everybody having their, if there's opportunities to share services, I think that's really good and productive use of resources and that infrastructure. So there's some capital costs that the city incurs on the front end of making those connections. And so this agreement was really kind of maybe restructuring that a little bit to coincide with some of their development and the timelines that it may occur on. But the development we're going to talk about next has some of those shared relationships too with Dayton. So good use of resources to be sharing that.
Okay, let's jump into the enclave development then. This was the topic that was the long discussion at the meeting. It was a public hearing, and so some residents took the opportunity to come forward. Let's take a little backward step first. Give us a little history of this project in this area. What is this area all about?
Yeah, so this is a development project called the Enclave at Rush Creek, and so it's a project kind of on the north end of town. It's right on the Dayton border, actually, and it connects through an existing Dayton residential subdivision. It's just kind of sits up right above the Rush Creek area up there. If you're familiar with that area, kind of west of Fernbrook, north of Territorial Road. It'll gain its access off of Fernbrook Road, and then through that development project through Dayton. But one of the issues is getting the infrastructure there. So sewer service will come from Dayton. We will be bringing up the water and serving the project there. And so it's kind of this kind of a cooperative piece. The water service, one of the challenges, we either need to bring it up Fernbrook, or we could go up Territorial Road and kind of cut through up across the creek there up to the project.
Right.
And one of the related issues is Territorial Road and the condition that it's in. That road has not seen improvement for many, many years, and the council has considered doing that project in the past. There has been some neighborhood, concern about that, the cost of the project, the assessments, whatnot. So what the city brought forward related to the Enclave project was the opportunity to kind of run the water main up Territorial and cut across country there. And then a lot of the cost associated with that project or the road reconstruction would be borne by the water project. So we thought that it was maybe a good solution, brought the assessment cost down for the residents along there. They would be assessed kind of a normal residential lot type cost, and maybe make the project more feasible. A lot of concerns about traffic, cut through traffic up there, speed along that corridor, the condition of the road, whatnot. I think with the construction of 610, staff's thought is that will take some pressure off of that kind of, cut through traffic up there. If 81 is less busy because there's more volume on 610, people might be less likely to hop off 81 onto Territorial and cut across. And so, we're sort of holding out to see, well, what is the impact of 610 opening to those more local road connections? But long story short, last night, after a lot of discussion and debate, the council did approve moving forward with the public improvements associated with the residential development project to the north. They did hold off on the alignment of the water main because they want to kind of take another look at how they might structure those assessments. One of the concerns raised by the residents was, if we pay for this assessment now and have this interim improvement constructed, what happens when the area redevelops, and then there would be additional assessments for some of the trunk area charges associated with sewer, water, some of the bigger road improvements. And so the council talked about some ideas about how they might deal with that in structuring those assessments, and sort of challenge staff to come back with some options about that. So that one will be coming back with regard to the Territorial Road project. We won't have to deal with the improvements for the development itself again, but we will need to make some decisions about Territorial Road and what will happen there. The other piece was the residents had expressed an interest in lowering the speed limit out there, just to deal with some of the safety concerns, and there was council support to do that, so staff will be working on that element as well.
Is this a unique area that something like this potentially has not happened in the city before, with this type of elements all coming together at the same time? Or not necessarily, as there may be some precedence to something like this site? From what I heard from some of the discussion is it's pretty unique.
It is, because you have an area that is sort of, future redevelopment is likely. So you have a number of different, larger lot residential development there.
That have been there for how many years?
That have been there for many, many years. That, 10, 15 years from now, that land use is likely to change. As you see development happening to the north, and you have the 610 project going through, and land use in and around that area changing, there will be likely development pressure on that land. And so some of the bigger landowners up there, there probably would be a scenario where there would be some assembly and some re-guiding of the land, likely in a residential fashion, but probably at a higher density. So it is a little bit unique because we're not quite there yet. We're not quite at the point where that land is ready to go. But you have this road that's in, a pretty failed condition, and concerns about that. And so we've tried to approach this as an interim approach that could very well be 15 years until that land, fully is ready for redevelopment, because it will take the property owners there need to kind of come to that and make those decisions, and somebody would need to come in and assemble the land and make it ready for a project. So it is a bit of a unique situation where you sort of have, deteriorating conditions, but it's not really ready for a full improvement to support development, because that road configuration might change. The alignment of that road might change to better suit the land for redevelopment purposes. So kind of trying to take the medium view here, but keep the long view in mind as well. So we'll see what we come up with for some solutions on how to make those assessments maybe a little bit more tolerable to to the residents so we get the road improvement done, but also address some of their safety concerns.
And if I remember back to my development discussions in the city of Maple Grove over the years, it was always something that the city tried to make sure there was a method and a pattern to it, that it took steps, because if it does jump on occasion, which it sounds like maybe this is a little bit of that case with the enclave, that you do leave yourself with some situations where there's a gap and something needs to be done. And that's the case here with the water, that the water needs to go here, but in between where the water is and the water needs to go, what do we do?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, it's just not quite there yet. And you're right, the city's been very planful about kind of orderly development. I do think the 610 project and having that project done, it's just going to change the context of that area.
Right.
And you know, for better or worse, it's just kind of the reality of what happens with real estate when there's transportation improvements. But the other side of it is it can take time. It can take many years for those things to come to fruition, and you have folks that are living there that may not be interested in that at this time, and that's okay.
Right.
So, you know, it's just how do you get through the next 10 to 15 years, but keep your eye on the long view as well.
All right, so a long-term street project to discuss there, and we'll keep you up to date on that.
Yep.
A couple other items on the council agenda. Street rehabilitation, the march continues on with that, and this is a yearly effort, and it was discussed at the council meeting the other day.
Yep. So that'll come forward at the March 7th meeting, and this is just the annual, on an annual basis, the city does about 10 miles of road every year. And so that'll come forward, and we'll have another hearing, and we'll talk about that. A little more typical in that, you know, that it's pretty routine business, and most of the lots are generally of a common size, and they're all in a suburban, you know. So it's a little bit more typical business of the city, routine, I guess I would characterize it as, versus this project, which is a little bit of a different situation.
All right.
Yep.
And as we sit here in February, believe it or not, we're talking about July, which is a good thing too. Maple Grove Days. Maple Grove Days obviously plans throughout the year, and they actually had something on the council agenda to talk about the celebration this year, which will be July 13th through the 17th. What do they need to do each year to continue their work to celebrate the city? Yeah,
so they just need to present kind of their plans to the city about what public streets will be impacted, you know, where things will be set up, whatnot, and the permits that are required for some of those things for tents, and how road closures will be accommodated, that kind of a thing. And so they start working early on that and making sure everything's lined up there. And so if something needs to change, or if there's any public safety concerns about something, that those are addressed early on, and tweaks can be made to the plan. So they're already in that process, and so yeah, that's kind of the work that was in front of the council last evening.
And as always, if people are interested, it's the Maple Grove Community Organization that puts that event on, and they're always looking for volunteers to help out, not only throughout the year in some of the planning, but also the days of the event. They need a lot of people to make that event pull off. So if you're interested, you can connect through the City of Maple Grove's website to get to the community organization.
That's correct.
I think we have covered 2 hours and 19 minutes and about a half hour here. Any other items in the city that we need to know about?
You know, I think that kind of covers the territory.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything that's going on. Again, you know, looking forward to kind of this planning session with the council, and you're right, at the next time that we tape this show, hopefully we'll have some updates of what the direction was, and where we're headed with the council on these issues.
Excellent. So next time we get together, a recap of the next meeting, which will be the first one in March, and then also a look back, or a look ahead at what's going to happen maybe in coming years for the city of Maple Grove. Heidi, thank you very much again for your time.
You're welcome.
We will see you again soon. Let's leave you with that next council date in case you're interested. It is Monday, March 7th, 7:30 at the Government Center. 494-6000 is the number there, and up at the top you see the maplegrovemn.gov website. That's where you can find all the information about the bus service. Again, that's on the front page of the website, as well as the community organization and ways to get involved. Viewer response line 533-1710. Comments or questions about the program, certainly give us a call. For Heidi Nelson, I'm Dave Kaiser. Thanks for joining us on the Maple Grove City Report.